Hi, everyone.
Hola. No.
So, okay, for those, no one gets it. No one gets the joke. So we just got through recording like 13 minutes of an episode, only to realize that we weren't recording.
Oh, yeah, no, my sound kicked out at a certain time. And so that wasn't good. But what we started originally was I was trying to translate into Spanish and I only got as far as hello, welcome, and then stop. So it didn't work out that well. But please, everybody, welcome to this episode of Hot Mess Moments with your hosts, Beth and Dylan. I happen to be Dylan. Hi, I am
No, please introduce yourself, Dylan.
Hi, I'm Dylan. I'm a hot mess, a moment.
I hate me too.
And that's it.
And my name's Beth. I like juicy literature, but even juicier romantic encounters with all genders. Ooh.
And I'm gay.
That's you, yeah. I love that. But you guys can check us out. I'm at Aphid Dylan, and Beth is at Augusta Windle.
There we go.
And make sure to go follow us at Hot Mess Moments on Twitter if you haven't already.
Yes. And just because it's the beginning of the episode, why don't we tell you as well that you can find us not only on wherever platform you're listening to now, whether it be Spotify or Apple or YouTube, but you can find us in all those different places. So please leave us a like, a rating, a review, a follow, something in order to help engage and push our content further so we can reach even more masses with our messiness.
Yeah, you want to see my masses?
I want to see your messiness with your mess.
We haven't even got on a first date.
Or if you're me as a demisexual, we haven't dated for like a year. No, that's not true. I had speech on my camera. There we go.
I don't know what that means, but
speech.
Yeah, what?
It's the sound my mouth made.
So, speaking of shmeesh, Cece was given that. I really tried to transition that. I was so bad.
Okay. And the award for awkward transition goes to
me,
the
Beth.
Oscars, actually. Oh, wow. No, actually. No. No, but yes, we are going to be talking about episode 5 of both The Nanny and Lost. For those that don't know the concept of our podcast show, I have never watched Lost. Dylan has never watched The Nanny, but they're both our favorite shows. So, I don't know if Lost is my favorite show yet. We're going to find out.
No. Lost is my favorite show. Lost is your Arabian, and Nanny is your favorite show.
We haven't watched each other's favorite shows.
Yeah. So
I feel like I am all sorts of hot messes tonight, which is on brand.
Yeah. It's like perfect for tonight.
Perfect.
Because I'm like running on I've been working since 10 a.m. and it's currently 10:32 p.m. So we're running on 12 hours, but
that's it.
Basically, but I am very excited to talk about these episodes today because episode 5 of The Nanny is Here Comes the Brood.
Mm-hmm.
And let me give you my spicy take, my thoughts in this episode.
I want to hear your hot take.
Oh, here's my hot take. So this episode, out of the 5 we've seen, is clearly in the top 3. Clearly.
So when you say top 3, do you mean it's third?
Actually, no. I would say it's tough. So I'll get into my rating. My rating for this episode is probably a 9 out of 10.
Okay.
It has so many hilariously funny moments.
And it really does.
So many quotable lines, and everyone is just knocking it out of the park. The one issue I have with this episode is Gracie runs a little annoying to me. Just
girl. So she went from this being your top kind of person all the way to
And here's why. So in previous episodes with Gracie, she is not the focal point. She is someone that just kind of interjects the humor. But when you give an episode just to Gracie, you learn how very one note she is. Now, towards the end, it's a bit better. We see this connection she has with the nanny and she opens up a bit more. And that's that is really good.
And how Fran is already influencing how she's communicating and such as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So honestly, this could be like a 9.5 for going on a 0.5 scale.
Wow. Okay.
It's really good. Let's get into like the actual episode itself.
Yeah, please. I want to know what your synopsis of this is, because there's a lot of really important moments that happen that I think really set up not only Gracie's development, but the development of the relationship between Fran and Cece, which is, we're going to say a little bit of tension there.
Yeah, the girls are fighting this episode.
The girls are fighting.
Oh my God.
The girls are fighting.
The claws are out. I was like, I don't know if they're about to like make out or if they're about to like fight. Because either way, I would watch.
So
not like
my
in a creepy way.
Guys, can we get the hashtag Dylan is canceled going on Twitter right now? I'm just kidding. This is great. I love that you just think that Fran's gonna like fuck everybody on the cast. You're like, is she and Mr. Sheffield?
Just Maxwell and Cece, you know.
She and Niles.
Yeah, I love it. No, Niles and Maxwell. Fun fact, I didn't. Someone in my community looked for a fan fiction of Niles and Maxwell, and sadly there is none. It does not exist. So if you would like to write a fan fiction of Maxwell and Niles, I will gladly read it.
I will also we'll do a dramatic reading of it on a special Hot Mess Moments podcast. If you write one, we will each take a role.
Yes. Oh my God. Yes. Okay. So, yes. There is some fun side episodes of Hot Mess Moments I have in store. I have not told you about these yet, Beth.
I'm excited.
I'll run these by you. I got some fun. Well, I don't want to spoil them just yet because I have to go through the planning process, but there's some fun stuff that I think that we could do. But anyway, sorry, back to the episode. So we kick off with Fran waking up inside of the mansion in her beautiful bathrobe. Her makeup's done. Her hair's up. She's living her life. Yes, God. And the kids are getting ready for school. I love this is my hand motion for the episode. So the kids are getting ready for school. And when they come down, they clearly adore Fran. They're all about Fran. Oh, yes, do the Macarena. And the kids just like have this admiration and love for Fran. And Fran is very comfortable where she is. So cut to Cece arriving at the mansion. And we'll get into like more details. Just interject whenever.
Sure.
But so Cece arrives at the mansion and she kind of sees how the kids are reacting to Fran, and she's seeing like how comfortable she is. There's even this, my horny meter went off. My horny meter went off where, not like that. Girl, you're making this.
I'm sorry. I was just making assumptions.
Sorry, for those that don't know.
It was a semi.
Yeah, Beth was doing Beth was doing a penis motion with her hand. The awkward kiss between Maxwell, or near kiss between Maxwell and Fran, was so hot. And
so you've talked about this a little bit, that you think that there's like a lot of tension. Yeah. Do you think that this was a tension or just like a physical comedy moment?
It was a physical comedy moment, but it was like clearly hinting at what everyone was thinking by episode 5 of the season. I'm pretty sure you cannot sit there and tell me that when the Nanny was airing for the first time, people were like, I love their professional relationship.
There's not a soul that thinks there's a professional relationship. Literally, that's the best part, I think, about this show, which you've just hit on the head, which is that there is literally, it doesn't matter what the character is. If it's Niles, Cece, Fran, Maxwell does not have a professional bunch among him. He's got a business partner who just hits on him incessantly all the time. He's got a butler who just annihilates that woman with insults all the time in front of him, in front of company, in front of everybody. And you've got a nanny who has no sense of class and has no quote unquote right to be in that household. So it's not like Maxwell has like the best hiring skills. Honestly, HR would be appalled.
Uh, for sure. I mean, I would be right there with them. I would probably be like making some like flirty comments at Maxwell, but we've already gone over how horny I am for Maxwell. And
Would you be like the pool boy if they had a pool?
absolutely sign me up. I will clean your pools. I will wear whatever outfit, Maxwell. So
You'll be like, we're producing this new play. It has sailors in it. Would you try this on? And you'd be like,
I'm like,
oh,
yes!
you would think it would be like some kind of come on. And he'd be like, no, it's not going to work. Okay, can we do?
Yeah, that's exactly what would happen. So we get to this moment where Cece wants to try and be Fran or be a better Fran.
Mm-hmm.
And she wants to connect with Maxwell because I think she sees the chemistry between Fran and Maxwell. And
She
it's
sees
like,
competition, baby.
she sees competition, girl. She's like, this is not Niall's best friend race, okay? This is Niall's house and we're just living in it.
100% though.
And Cece suggests that they go to the zoo, or no, does Maxwell suggest they go to the zoo?
She says, why don't we, I would love to spend some more time with you and the kids like I used to. And he goes, but you never used to. And she goes, well, let's keep that all in the past. I would love to start.
Yeah.
And he goes, well, tomorrow's Miss Fine's day off. Why don't we go to the zoo with the children?
That's what he said, yeah.
And she said, we could be one big happy family, you and me. And he goes, and the children. And she was like, oh yeah, of course, that goes without saying. So what we see here is obviously not only her attempt at trying to, like, as you said, fill in Fran's shoes, but like show that she can be motherly to Maxwell and all that kind of stuff. And in an attempt to look even more attractive to him. I have the feeling this is literally the only time she's ever spent with the children ever in their lives.
Absolutely.
If you even recall back to the pilot episode, like the kids were obviously never invited to anything that had to do with business. They're not like allowed probably in Maxwell's office during the day. Like in her mind, the nanny takes care of the children, takes them away, and that she can just focus on Maxwell. And in her delusional mind, he's focusing on her.
Exactly. She's losing it. She's delusional. The delusion.
Girl.
So the next day it's breakfast and it's like, I think it's Fran's day off, but Fran is like eating breakfast with the family, and Cece arrives in this gaudy safari outfit that is not cute. I don't think it's very cute. What do you think? Okay.
I think no. It's absolutely what you would imagine somebody saying, "Oh, I'm going on safari," but like they're not actually going on like safari. They're going on. It's like when someone says they're going to go camping, but they're really going glamping. It's like that kind of thing.
Call my husband out.
100%. Your husband and I would share a glamper. 100%. It's what's happening. But I just, this outfit is, you know, they have that wonderful moment. She's like, Banana Republic.
It's
Abercrombie
so
and Fitch, dear.
But I love that the children just can't stand Cece, and this is more of a punishment, honestly, for them than it is Cece, because they would love nothing more than to not go to the zoo with Cece.
Yeah. I think part of this too is this idea of like, we know that she's awful, and like dad uses her for her shrewdness when it comes to, you know, business.
Yeah.
She's scary.
She is. And the more that I think about it, like, I love Cece as a character because I'm an adult and I can get the nuances of like what it is she's trying to pull. But as a kid, it was in this moment that it connected for me that I grew up with a Cece in my life. So a little bit of backstory about me. I am adopted on my father's side. Okay. And I used to call her, I hope she's listening, an evil stepmother. Ooh. On my adoptive father's side. We'll just use the name Pam. That's not her name, but her name was Pam. And she was fully what Cece would be like if Cece had to adopt kids. And
so
was like,
if Cece had to adopt Maxwell's kids.
Yes.
She would be like the stepmother.
Oh yeah. She used to force me to like eat all my food at the plate. She wouldn't let me leave the dinner unless I ate every single food, even if I had to force myself. She always kind of kept me away into my bedroom whenever guests were over. I was never allowed to like come out and play. She would like make sure that I could only use the computer or the television for certain amounts of time, because I was to be seen and not heard in a lot of situations. So it got better as I got older, but it like brought back memories to me when I saw Cece in this outfit, and I was just like, oh, that bitch.
Well, so wait, time out. Did she just like wear that outfit? That's where the connection came into?
She used to dress like that. Yeah.
Oh,
she would dress in gaudy. Yeah.
So I think too that the other thing you've hit on the head here, I think is culturally what we're seeing is this stuffy upper class nature where, you know, for a long time, children were not to be seen or heard. They were, you know, if they weren't doing something to serve or, you know, kind of just be a mascot for the family, they didn't get to interact with guests or anything like that. And that kind of stayed more so in American culture, at least with upper class culture for a long time. And in that sense, you know, families were seen as very distant with each other, that there wasn't this over sense of, you know, love and affection that you see with when we contrast it with like Fran and her mother, which we're going to get to in a second, which I think is actually another huge part of this episode, is that Cece kind of represents the women that Maxwell probably would have been around. We don't know much about the mother at this point, but we could assume that the mother was potentially of this class as well. And so seeing Fran be so different, but get this like raging amount of applause from everybody about acting this way, I think is very, you know, sets her guard up. And I think the children are now like, oh, now that we know what affection is like, Cece's taking us to the zoo now. So I could definitely appreciate what you're saying there and how it connects to the show.
What I am really curious about, and this is me getting a little over analytical, is I'm curious how much time has passed since their mother has passed, because it seems like these kids have gotten over it fairly quickly. In the sense that I don't know if if it's like when they were really young, the mom passed, and like that's why we only see that Maggie really has a lot of issues and not the other two.
And I think it's important too to point out what their ages are too. So we do get confirmation in this episode that Brighton is 10. He says, who listens to a 10-year-old? So Brighton is 10. We know from the pilot episode that Maggie is 14, because when she kisses Eddie, she goes, she's 14. She's a young woman. And we can assume that Gracie is about 6 or 7 at this point too. So there's about a 7-year difference between Maggie and Gracie, and then Brighton's in the middle. So it kind of tells you a little bit about, regardless of when the mother died, like, or how she passed, these kids, Gracie or like Maggie had to have been at least 7.
Yeah.
Right. So that tells you around the time frame in their lives, as to when she would have had to pass. And we learn a little bit more, so I'm not going to give that away.
Yeah. I was just curious because it was really funny, because I'm also curious, like even from like the pilot to now, how much time has passed, because like Fran, she's like a little parasite. She's just just wiggled her way into the upper middle class, and she's like put her talons in, and I love it. Okay, sorry. So back to the episode. We come back from the zoo. It like goes like right from we're going to the zoo to now we're back from the zoo. And the
other key part about this, is that Maxwell's supposed to go to the zoo, but he wakes up with a toothache. That's right. So he doesn't go to the zoo anymore. And Cece just takes the kids to the zoo on her own, which is nobody's, like at this point, you should have just canceled it. But I think she's still wanting to prove to Maxwell that she could do this. And Maxwell like hypes her, Cece can still take her. So what's she going to say? Like, no, I can't. So, And
this is where we get the girls are fighting, because like Fran clearly, and we've seen this like over the last few episodes, like Fran is like aware of what Cece is trying to do. And this is the moment where you see Fran start striking back, and she is crafty. Okay. She is so crafty, because
She's the stealthy bitch. And I love it.
She's like, I'm going to make sure that Cece can't say no to this. And there's so many moments in this where Fran like one-ups Cece and like just gets her. So what happens is the kids come home from the zoo and they have the worst time ever. Brighton is like vomited in Cece's hat and Cece's purse, and like no one is having fun. And Cece is trying to keep up this facade that, oh, everything was marvelous, everything was great. And these poor children, like, I'm surprised one of them didn't get eaten by an animal.
Well, and they're all arguing too. So all the kids are arguing with each other, and it calls back to the pilot once again, where they really didn't have any kind of sibling relationship. And in the beginning of this episode, you see them kind of like, you know, when they're getting ready for school, that they're all next to each other and like, you know, have their hands on each other and kind of get along well. And even if there's still sarcastic remarks from Brighton or Gracie or Maggie or whatever, there's a lot more sense of a family bond between them because of Fran. And just one afternoon with Cece and they're already fighting.
Which honestly, kind of a superpower, Cece. Maybe
you know what? You better work. That's awesome.
The talent. The talent, girl.
Honestly. Honestly. The Avengers would have been fucked if you joined. Could you imagine? Like, Civil War would have happened 8 movies earlier.
It really would have. Iron Man 2, they're done. They're over with.
The girls are fighting Cece Babcock.
She's the supervillain. I just love this moment though, where Cece is just becoming more and more unhinged.
Yeah.
And I think it's funny too, because we also see this like character arc throughout the episode of Cece coming to the realization that maybe this isn't going to work. Like the delusion is starting to fade, and reality is setting in that like, oh shit, maybe this Maxwell thing won't work. And by the end of the episode, once we get there, it comes to full realization. But the kids are back from the zoo, and we switch to Fran, who on her day off is getting ready for this she's a bridesmaid in a wedding with this horrendous pink dress. Oh my God.
It is if Detox's Marie Antoinette color scheme met Little Bo Peep, but they dragged it up even more, but not in a glamorous way. And they in a camp way.
Yeah, and they got drunk off tequila when they sewed the thing and
100%.
You know, with the concept.
So this was back in the days, and they make reference to this a little bit in the scene. This was back in the days where like brides would oftentimes make their bridesmaids wear something that was a little gaudy in order to make sure that the bride stood out as being the prettiest one. Yeah. Thankfully, by the time I came around and was in bridesmaid parties, that's really no longer a thing. It's really more about finding something that fits everybody and that kind of thing. But so this was a choice.
It was, but for the first time, drum roll, imaginary drum roll. For the first time, the outfit of the episode is not going to Fran. It is going to Sylvia with the blue peacock dress.
The blue peacock feathers and the straps. And the best part about this is like you can also tell how different body images in terms of being portrayed in media from 1993 to 2001.
Oh, yeah.
Because the whole running joke here is that Sylvia's dress has these straps on the back, and she's going, oh, ma, I don't know about this. And she's kind of pushing the skin in between the straps, and she goes, you kind of look like a ham.
And I was like, where are you buying your hams that are that skinny?
But then I also was like, well, to be honest with you, unless it was like Roseanne, for example, was like really one of the first women to be a little heavier and have a leading role, but like they had to make it a comedic thing that her weight was like funny, right? Rather than just like accepting that that's some of it. And then you do the same thing with Sylvia. Like this is the beginning of a very long stretch of time where Sylvia's weight is consistently going to be something that people make fun of.
Really?
Yes.
She's not even fat.
And that's the thing too. Large. The other line that happens in this is, it's not your fault that, or it's not my fault that she's a size 18, talking about the bride.
Yeah.
Girl, I'm a 18. Bitch, I'm a plus size woman. But guess what? In 2021, you better love these curves. You better get into it. And that's the thing. That's what's so different here, right? So like there's fat shaming here. And oftentimes they'll play it up in a fun kind of way. But at the end of the day, we're in the 90s when we're at the height of supermodels. We're at the height of you better be super skinny. And we see this a little bit with Fran and her fashions. It's the reason why she can pull off some of this stuff is literally because it's off of a runway, not within the context of the show, but like IRL. So that's what I think is really funny. But yes, in 2021, you better work with that Sylvia dress. It looks so good. In 1993, I'm sure people were saying the same thing that Fran was saying. But in 2021, we celebrate you.
Well, not just that, but like this outfit is like, I could see this on Drag Race.
100%.
Yeah, like these peacock is not cheap. Peacock feathers, okay? So, I mean, I could definitely see it.
But you know what my favorite thing, just to make another note about this, because it's like I think about this so much in like the past few years that I've rewatched this episode, because I do revisit this episode a lot. I think it's a lot of fun. I can quote that scene in particular is one of my favorite scenes of the series. What I love the most about Sylvia as a character, and especially in this scene, is even though Fran is making fun of her weight and such, her attitude is, the saleswoman should die or should choke on her commission. And then she just like goes on with her life and enjoys what she's wearing anyway. And I'm like, yes, because you know what? I know so many women, myself included, who would be like, oh my God, I better change before I go to this family wedding that I'm going to be in pictures with. You better work staying in that dress, and you look fabulous in it.
Oh, and before we move on from this like scene before Gracie shows up, the fact that she is combing the toupee was so funny to me.
There's so many things here that
there's so many gags of like basically the dad is like on his deathbed by the way they talk to him, but he's by the way they talk about him. Like, so then Gracie shows up at the door. She took one of the many limos that they have in order to show up to see Fran, because she, I think, takes a lot of comfort in Fran and like feels a sense of family. And so Fran, being the nanny that she is, because she's a badass nanny, instead of like, you know, just taking her back home, knows that, you know, Gracie needs me in this moment, and takes her to the wedding with them after a really hilarious moment where this is the setup again, where Fran is getting back at Cece. She calls the house and pretends she doesn't know or she's like, oh yeah, I want to speak to Gracie, fully setting up Cece here because Cece thinks she knows where Gracie is. And I'm like, oh my God, honestly, Fran needs to go on Survivor. She might actually do well on Survivor.
Could you imagine if they reboot The Nanny and they were like, and now Fran Fine on Survivor. Jeff Probst is like snuffing her torch, like just get out of here kind of thing. And she's like, okay. Now
Mr.
there's no
Probst, Mr. Probst.
Oh my God, better yet, put Sylvia on Survivor. And she's like, meanwhile, this clam is delicious. Like,
she's like, and I'm not talking about the one between my legs. I'm talking about from the ocean. Yeah.
Things Sylvia would never say. No, but what I love I think that the reason why Grace runs away, which we didn't get to, is that in the height of frustration, Cece tells them, of course Fran likes spending time with you. She gets paid to do it. I did it for free. And that really affects Cece because it makes it seem like there's a fakeness here. And as we know, Grace has a lot of mental health issues and I think attachment issues. And so she's finally really attached to somebody, and to know that maybe that person doesn't love me and that they're only spending time with me because my daddy pays for them to do that. And that's really heartbreaking for especially like a 6 or a 7-year-old to hear. So when she runs away, it's because she's running to the person that she's attached to kind of prove to herself that Fran loves her.
Yeah, and it also kind of feeds into how much of a partier and like how fun Fran is, because she allows Gracie to go to this wedding with her. and doesn't even ask for Maxwell's permission. She's just kind of like, all right, meet us at the wedding. And the next scene, you immediately see Gracie very awkwardly dancing with that. I was like, this girl don't know what she's doing. And they're just like, just go with it. It's for the scene, Gracie.
You know what? Bless her. That is Beth Dixon at that age. I used to, quote unquote, dance to Cookie Monster's C is for Cookie, but it was just me swaying back and forth like this.
I love that.
And I would perform it at family parties. People would be like, have to sing C is for Cookie. And I'd be like, so that's just, white girls can't dance.
Oh my God. I am so sorry to your family.
Well, you know what? They raised a Leo. It was their fault. They could have, not conceived me in November.
Honestly, it's true. So at the wedding, I'm going to skip over a little bit here because there's this like really annoying plot with this little kid.
Yeah.
And I was just like, ugh. But you fully know that kid grew up to be a fabulous gay man. And honestly, I'm here for it.
I'm sure he's on Broadway.
Oh, for sure. But Cece and Maxwell show up and there's a little bit of a fight that kind of breaks out, a little bit of an argument, and Gracie disappears again. And they're freaking out. They're like, oh my God, where's Gracie? We need to find her. And
but then one of my other favorite lines, I don't know why this makes me laugh so much. Sylvia comes out of the women's room and goes, did you lose something? If she's 3'2" and not a Jew, she's crying her little eyes out in the powder room. I don't know why. I freaking love Sylvia so much.
Sylvia is so good. So Fran goes into the bathroom and there's this very heartfelt moment between Gracie. This is like the redemption arc for me for Gracie in this episode because there's a lot of vulnerability and Gracie kind of is reassured by Fran that's like, I love you outside of my job. I am not getting paid to love you. I'm getting paid to take care of you, but I'm not getting paid to love you. Like I could do this job without loving you but I love you. So like,
after federal and state and FICA, it's a labor of love.
So good. So then they emerge from the bathroom and I will point out again, because I'm horny for Maxwell here, the way Fran looks at Maxwell in the scene, she's given like, yeah, I'm a badass mom. Like, fuck yeah, I am. She's given this vibe of like, I'm that bitch. And I love it. Yeah.
Here's the other moment that I was watching for your facial expression to see if you would have like a I told you so kind of moment, is because Gracie and Maxwell start dancing. She's dancing on his shoes and Fran goes, "Ah, Ma, look at them. Isn't that cute?" She's dancing on his shoes and Sylvia goes, "Yeah, go cut in."
Yep. I was feeling it. I was like, I almost wanted to say that, like, I was like hoping that there would be like the next scene because I want to see Fran just cut in and be like, "Ooh, Maxwell, let's dance." And then salsa music starts playing, and then they like, da, 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 da. But
I do have a question for you.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you think that Maxwell would have acted the way that he did in this episode had it not been for Fran? Do you think that he's already changed from the pilot?
Absolutely. He is a completely different character now.
Okay.
And that's why I am so shocked because I thought, could you hear my husband? My husband's playing Dead by Daylight in the other room. And so that's why I'm kind of shocked at the writing of season 1, because we're seeing characters like evolve and change very quickly. Like, that's why I was like horny for Maxwell after like the 3rd episode, because he annoyed me so much in the 1st episode because he was just a shitty father, and he's learned so much from Fran in such at least from what we've seen, a short amount of time. It could be a long amount of time.
We also see he has a very different relationship with each of his children, right?
Yeah.
So Maggie reminds him of his wife that we've talked about. She's also the oldest. She's a 14-year-old girl. So there's all those different things that happen when you're in your teenage years, especially if you're a teenage girl.
Yeah.
And then you have Brighton, who went from being like kind of a troublemaker little kid, but he's also like Maxwell's only son. So like they're trying to do father-son bonding activities and such, like we've seen. And I think he knows, and he's always known that Grace is fragile, but he's never really been involved with her emotional development. And so what I love the most about him, and he has such a small role in these episodes, or in this episode, but what I love the most about him is just like when he finally sees her after she's been missing and she ran away and that kind of thing, he doesn't scold her. Yep. I think that Maxwell before the pilot would have scolded her. Instead, he goes, "Oh, sweetheart, how are you?" Like you scared me so much. And he's showing that outpouring of love, similar to how Fran's reaction was when she shows up on Fran's doorstep.
Oh, Maxwell, you're so hot. Literally just being a decent human being. And I'm like, oh.
But he also has a British accent. So it's like...
I don't know if that's like a big plus for me. I think it's more so the dad thing. I think it's like him becoming a better father has me like grabbing my seat. Like
you're like, I want to have a baby.
Basically, yeah.
Give me your babies.
So there's also a really awkward moment that we have to touch on where she's like, I'm no Ivana Trump, but neither is she. And I was like, ooh, you weren't wrong. They reference the Trumps a lot in this, but also the comment is so true.
So in my free time, I've been watching later seasons of The Nanny because whatever. And there's even more that happens later on, like in the later 90s portion, like full on guest stars they make reference and such. And it's so interesting. But that line,
it was good.
I mean, at this point, let's do it contextually. Ivana Trump was no longer married to Donald anymore. He was on his second marriage at this point.
Yeah. Oh. And before we move on to Lost, we have to talk about the final zinger of Fran and Cece, where Fran puts Cece in her place. I was like, if this was Real Housewives, Fran would have like flipped the table and like gotten Cece's face, but she's basically
Fran is the meme of the woman yelling at the cat eating a salad. Like,
yes,
Cece's the cat.
Cece is fully the cat here because Fran basically is like, if you ever mess, and does she say my children?
Yeah. Any of my kids again.
Yeah. Which another sign here where she's got this like maternal instinct for these kids. Mm-hmm. Like, you ever mess with my children again, and it's going to be your blue blood all over the walls. And I was like, fight her. Just fight already.
Sure. Yeah, Mortal Kombat. Just like
I love that. But it's so funny because I wrote down on my notes, I was like, oh my God, my theory is right. They're going to become friends. Because I thought when Cece and Fran sat down that they were going to have a really good heart to heart. I was wrong, but still, I think it's going to happen. Because I think this is the moment where the blinders are now off of Cece, where she's starting to realize that like, maybe me and Maxwell aren't going to work out. And I need to like stop being threatened by Fran because Fran's winning here.
I mean, anything is possible.
We will see. Okay. So my MVP and LVP.
Yes.
For the episode. My MVP clearly goes to Sylvia, not only for the outfit, but for the zingers. She's so good. I have a feeling every time Sylvia is going to be on screen going forward, she might be my MVP.
Meanwhile.
Yeah.
I just love her. Sylvia, you can pretty much do any Sylvia impression by just starting a sentence with meanwhile, and then that's how you get into her cadence and everything. It's just great.
She's so good.
Who's your LVP?
Yeah, my LVP, I really don't want to do this where I give it to another character of the episode, kind of like where I did with Manny or Danny in the first episode.
Eddie?
No. Yeah, Eddie. I'm thinking of the boyfriend. I was thinking of the boyfriend from
Danny. Yeah. Okay.
And then I gave it to the waiter. So I'm not going to make this my official LVP. I was going to give it to the little boy because he was like annoying as hell.
The tap dancing little boy.
Tap dancing little boy, yeah.
Bobby?
Yeah. If I had to give an LVP to anyone, I might give it to Niles because he doesn't say a lot this episode. There's not a lot of Niles, which isn't a fault on Niles' part, but I mean, I have to knock him down at some point because he's just so good.
To be fair, his job is to like really nail Cece with the zingers, and he really doesn't do that this episode. It's really Fran and the kids that do.
Yeah. So they kind of fill that Niles role. So if I had to give an LVP, I'll probably give it to Niles.
Fair enough. And so a 9/9.5 out of 10. Yeah. We love Here Comes the Brood. It's one of my favorite. It's one of like the more iconic, I think, first season episodes. So I'm glad that you enjoyed it.
Oh yeah. I mean, clearly. In fact, I might even rewatch this with my husband tonight before bed. We'll see.
You should, because he missed out.
Good. Yeah. Okay.
All
so
right.
Lost.
I just feel like I'm just so right about everything right now.
Oh, here she goes.
Okay. So let me first of all start off by saying I loved this episode, even though last episode was really great in terms of Locke's story and was powerful on an emotional level. I think this was my favorite in terms of like what the hell is going on. So I'm giving this a 10 out of 10 for an episode. I loved this episode. So it starts off with Jack as a little boy. This is a Jack-centered episode. And we see that Jack has not only always had this like hero complex where he wants to stand up for what's right and like help people who are in trouble, but that he has this weird relationship with his father, who is also a surgeon, who just is like, you can't have emotions about this. Like, you just do your job. And if you can't save somebody, then you just have to move on and go on, which is appropriate because that is like what they teach doctors to do. But it seems even more disassociative than like what they teach doctors to do. Like, it really seems like there's much more happening. And as we learn throughout the episode, clearly his father is not with it. And whether he's purely an alcoholic, because they definitely allude to that, or if he's an alcoholic in addition to having maybe some massive dissociative and mental health issues, which I think might be the case.
I in this like second, third rewatch, the way I saw that scene with his father telling young Jack the fact of like, basically, you know, there's no point to
You're
like,
not going to save everyone.
He says like, you don't have what it takes. Like, don't play the hero, basically. Like, he's like, and I felt like this is also the dad kind of telling himself that you're a bad father, where he's like disassociating from being a good father, where
absolutely, like,
this is terrible advice to tell a kid who just tried to tried to stand up for someone who was getting bullied.
Most parents' reactions would be like, oh my gosh, you're such a good, in the future, you should try to keep yourself safe if it's possible to jump in, whatever. But we're really proud of you. He never says, I'm proud of you. He tells him that his son doesn't have what it takes. And he also says like, that he doesn't have what it takes. Like, if I can't help this kid died at my table today. I didn't have what it takes. So I move on. I have a drink. I laugh at the Carol Burnett show. And I just was like, dude, like whoa, massive yikes. And we also see later in the episode, another flashback where Jack is talking with his mother, and his mother's also just like, friggin' awful too. Like, they're both like people who clearly have impacted what we've seen, this hero complex, this leader complex, both that people have put onto Jack, which we see a lot of in this episode as well. Like, people have basically elected him as a leader without him really wanting to have that role, because of the way he acted in the beginning of helping people, because he had the skills and because he had an ability to order people to do things when they needed it to happen. But since he's killed, was it Mars?
Yes.
Was his name? Yep. Since he's killed Mars, he's had this, you can tell that he's like, I'm no hero. But there's also, what is so interesting is like, he did have what it takes to like do a mercy killing in this situation where the person asked for it. He wasn't going to help them, and he did it. like he didn't want to, but he did it. And ever since then, it's like he's both proven to himself that he has what it takes, but he doesn't believe it at the same time. So it's really interesting.
And it feeds right into what happens in this episode, because we kind of start off immediately. Once we get past the terrible child acting that happens in the flashback with Jack, because
I'm gonna beat you up, kid.
it's so bad.
Jack.
Like
it was really weird.
Yeah, and that's why the child acting was so bad here.
It was so bad. It was just bad all the way around. The person punching him, you could tell wasn't actually punching him. He was punching the fence at one point. He didn't even punch. Did you see that? Didn't even punch the kid. He went like right next to the kid and like punched the fence. Just all around, it was not it.
Sorry. Yeah, but I'm getting us so. Yeah, bad child acting, but your point that you were making though, with like this important decision that he had to make around Mars, feeds into this beginning scene where there is a woman who has been caught in I think it's called the updraft or where the water takes you out from the river when you go.
Oh, yeah. So the current like took her away basically. And so when he kind of is like thinking about his past, I think, in that moment. And what happens is somebody yells out, or Charlie runs up to Jack and says, "There's someone out there drowning. She's drowning." And he's like, "I can't swim." And so Jack immediately takes off into the water to go to save her. And then he dives down because he can't find her, and he gets Boone, who had been out there, which my initial thought was they do a cut back and everyone's like watching. And I'm like, where are the other people who can swim who are helping? Like, why is it only Jack who's out there? And so Boone obviously had tried to go out there, but I never heard Boone say, "Let me go to the shore." So like later in the episode, he says, "I told you to do that." I'm like, Boone, you couldn't talk. Like he really, you barely said, "It's out there." Like, I mean, it was like, you were going to die. And the other thing that so I used to be a lifeguard, and what kind of drove me crazy is that Jack, obviously, I don't know if he's a lifeguard, like, so he probably didn't know this, but like doesn't know how to save someone. So you can float pretty well on your back as a human. So what you should do when you save somebody is kind of put them on you so that your shoulder is kind of used as like a back of the pillow kind of thing for them. And you float for the two of them. And that way you can use your other arm to help stroke while you kick with both of your legs. And then if they can kick, you ask them to join you with kicking so that you can go as fast as you can away, right? You hold and secure the other person. Yeah, it's nicer when you have a flotation device like you see the lifeguards have, but so they're just kind of sitting there. And so if you had been able to rest for a second, it's feasible that maybe Boone would have been able to make it by himself. But again, the current is so strong and he's obviously so weakened by the ocean that I think that he makes the right move, which is, I have saved somebody. I need to bring them back. But here's where I get frustrated. Why wouldn't somebody else at the very least get into like waist deep or like water, because it's going to be deep enough, and like be there to receive? They like literally wait until they're like at the shore to like help take Boone off of Jack. And they're like, there's so much, she's still out there. And they, Jack can't save her, unfortunately.
Which is sad. If I remember correctly, I could be wrong about this. There is a side story about that woman you can read online.
Ooh,
there is there's a backstory to her and like how she died.
Well, I will allow you to look that up for me if you want, because I don't want to like go look at Lost stuff and then get spoiled on stuff. I know her name was Joanna.
Wait, really? Oh, that's right. Yeah. They say that. That's right. They say it. There's a few. There's like, I think one book about Lost, and it's about like a background character.
Oh, cool.
It could be her. I can't remember.
Well, before they confirmed that she was someone who was on the plane that had just been out swimming, I actually had this moment of like, oh my God, is this going to be a new character that they find? Like, has she just been in the ocean this whole time? Like, shipwrecked? Is she from another part of the island? Like, what happened here? But then they confirmed that she was someone that was in their like 47 group, and now they're 46. And then I wrote Jack ... Literally nobody else tried, so don't feel bad.
Yeah.
So
Also, someone who is like extremely tired, looking very hot. When he takes that shirt off, I was like, oh.
And we were like, oh, girl. You were like, oh, give me that fan.
Yeah. 'Cause, like, Jack, I don't see as very attractive. Like, he is here or there. He looks like a whiny baby for the most part.
Oh, my God. You know what? I'm going to jump ahead here. Can we also talk about another whiny baby moment? There's a moment where, so the water, they're low on water. They only have a few bottles left. So they decided to put it in one place and keep it safe in the tent where, and it gets stolen, and so they think that Sawyer took it. So Kate and Saeed wait until they find, because they know that Sawyer has some supplies that he's trading with people for things.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And they get out into the woods, and Kate tackles him to the ground, and Sawyer's like, I don't have the water. I traded, my last bottle of water. I'm going to wait till it rains. Like, why would I even care about water? That kind of thing. And then Kate's face is just so whiny. She literally all the time is just.
She's going to cry any second now.
I'm like, you're supposed to be like this independent, like strong woman, like from like your backstory and such. But like, it's just.
Call it out.
It looks like she's constantly holding in a fart.
Evangeline Lilly, you're getting called out by Beth right now.
Sorry. Also, I didn't know what this cord was on the ground.
What if we saw a hand? What if we saw a hand just up and grab it?
I also don't have any idea how that got there, though. Like, has that always been there? I
don't know, but now I'm freaked out.
Because I looked down. That's from the table over here. I'm sorry. The paranormal activity.
Yeah.
We will have to go back and see if it's always been there or not. But anyway, so yes. So Charlie and Hurley, in my opinion, are the ones that are constantly putting Jack in this. Like, they're actually doing quite a bit, I think, to help people. Like, we've seen Hurley try to like feed people and that kind of thing. I think that Charlie's kind of grown into that role. He wasn't originally. We see kind of this friendship blooming between the two of them as well. But they're always putting Jack as the leader, and people are always going to Jack. We've seen this for the past couple episodes that Jack just is like, I'm not a leader. I don't have what it takes, is this kind of attitude, which we now have a little bit of background for. I also wrote, Jack's dad sounds like a shit doctor.
Right? Nothing about him seems like someone I would want to go to for surgery.
And what I love here too is that I want to point out something that I thought was really interesting. There's like a little bit of, like, in music, they would call it text painting, when your lyrics paint this vision, but it like paints like what you're doing in the music as well. So if you say something like bursting into song, and like that's like a moment that like all of a sudden new instrumentation pops in or something, and it's just like they're bursting in, that's called text painting. There's something that kind of reminded me of this here, which is in the cutscene where he's talking with his mother. His mother says, you have to go after him. And like literally in the next scene, he's chasing after his father, which is confirmed. It's his father, the guy in the suit and the sneakers.
You said that.
I freaking called it. I literally said, but to me, literally it came down to the fact he didn't go, hey, who are you? You have those moments if you don't know who it is. But if you know who it is, you have to kind of like second guess yourself, right? And
especially we also with like Jax's context, because like you learn later like why he would be like, what the is that my dad? Exactly.
And so he sees him a few times. Now the thing I don't like is that there's a moment, the first time he sees him, like he's talking to Kate, and he just like shows up in the shallow parts of the ocean, but he never breaks eye contact with him. At least that's how they shoot it. Yeah. And then when we see it again, it's gone. So my question was, did Jack just see him disappear? Because it doesn't make sense. It would make sense if he looked back at Kate and then looked and he was gone. Instead, he just does this, and Kate's talking to him, and he's not saying anything and the camera cuts this way. And when we come back, he's still looking. So that I took a lot of note on, because I was like, if he didn't look away, he would have seen where he went.
Yeah.
Or if he just disappeared, he would know it's a hallucination. Anyway, so I was pulling my hair out at that. But we do see. Oh, go on.
Also, please. I'm going to say for a warning for everyone, we're going to make this a longer episode. Sorry.
Oh,
yeah. We have so much to talk about. I don't give a crap. We're
I don't give no crap. So I wrote, these my notes, bitch. I wish that you could just go along, because I like ask a question and then it gets answered on the back. So it's great. I said, was his dad on the plane? Well, we find out later. Yep. And so then the water was stolen. I'm not gonna name it.
Yeah. So basically, there's a few like beats that I want to get to before we get to the eventual moment where Locke volunteers. Yeah, that, and like Locke volunteers to like go find fresh water for everyone. So there is this like really fun moment between Claire and Kate where they're having this astrology talk. And
love that.
Yeah, it was so silly. And she's like, "You're such a Gemini." And she's like, "I am a Gemini," or like something along those lines.
She's like, "Are you a Gemini?" And Kate says, "Yeah, I am." And she said, "Oh yeah, I can tell." And she says exactly why she can tell. And then she says, "I can do your chart for you if you'd like." And Kate kind of just doesn't answer. She goes, "Or not." And there's just kind of like an awkward beat. And then she goes like, "Geminis," like that.
There's also this like side plot of I think this is where you start seeing this like connection between Charlie and Claire, where Charlie is like trying to care for Claire here. He's like worried about her well-being. He's wanting to get her water. And they have this like really interesting talk where she says that she appreciates Charlie because he is one of the only people that looks her in the eyes, because people seem scared of the fact that she's pregnant and on this island.
I think that, I mean, I as a viewer am scared that she's on this island and such. Yeah. But I also think that there's something really important here too, is that she's had, when she's sitting down with Kate, she has kind of like a moment where she kind of like, oh, you think that she's going to faint. And then she does eventually faint, and they kind of carry her over to the tent, and then she has that moment with Charlie. And all I could wait for, I was waiting for it to rain, Dylan. I was waiting for it to rain because I know that means something's going to happen. But I will get into more, because I do have something to tie in with Claire and all these other things. Like, I feel like my theory is right here. I just I feel it in my bones here. So then, they're freaking out because somebody stole the water and they need to go find a fresh water source. And Locke says, "I'll go. I know where to look." And, you just guys are needed here.
Yeah, y'all need to stay.
Y'all need to stay. I can go. And so he goes off in to get water. Meanwhile, Jack is chasing after, whether it is a vision of his father or his actual father, or whatever the case is. We don't have it confirmed. He almost catches him a few times. And to the point where Jack is incredibly disoriented. So it could be because of, he's dehydrated, hasn't slept much. He's under immense pressure. Another person just died that he had been trying to save. Like, you have all these throwbacks to his father telling him, he doesn't have what it takes, and that's being proven, all these other things. And meanwhile, he's trying to chase his father, which we later learned, like just a few minutes later, that his father did die when he was in Australia. And that he was trying to bring his father back. And so the fact that his father's coffin with him was on the plane is, in this moment, I will get to that part later, would make this even more disorienting.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's him. I think it's the island that's making him disoriented. Okay. I think it's the jungle itself, because the moment he trips and falls down all of that hill, and all of a sudden he's dangling.
Which I'm like, how far are you? There's a giant cliff. Like,
yeah. All of a sudden he's at a giant cliff, but he falls and he rolls down this huge side, and then he's like dangling. All of a sudden he's not disoriented anymore because he's out of the jungle. So I noted that, and I was like, I really think that there's something to be said about the island playing tricks on people and doing things, which makes me think that maybe the monster isn't necessarily like a real thing. Like, and because we then get to see Locke shows up to save Jack. And so I wrote Locke represents Jack's dad, ? Because there have been two times now where Jack has followed his father into the woods. The first was like 1 or 2 episodes ago, and Locke was right there. And so who's the one that saves him?
Locke again. Yeah, that's a great observation.
So I think Locke is like kind of representing his father in a way, the person who's going to validate. It's going to be all the things his actual father didn't give him, even though his father is there. And I think it's like two sides of one coin going to come together in its weird way. And
I think another really interesting, and this is me getting back into themes here. So I talked about the theme of like black and white, and Locke is very big about black and white here. And so did you notice that all the characters were wearing black and white in this episode too? No, that's on purpose. That is fully on purpose. And so Kate, Saeed, Locke, and Jack are all wearing white shirts, which is very strange, and it makes them stand out behind any background. But did you notice that when Jack is in the jungle, it's very dark and black, and it's like you said, it's very disorienting. And the minute he leaves that jungle, it's all bright and shining, and here's Locke in his bright white shirt to come and save him, which I thought, I don't know if that like,
and his father is wearing black and white, by the way.
Yeah. With like black tux with bright white tennis shoes.
Exactly. And a white shirt. And so that's what I think is really interesting. So you have all of that. And then on top of it, you've got other characters. Claire is wearing a black dress. Charlie's wearing black. I think Hurley's wearing black. I think Sawyer's wearing black. I think Boone is wearing black. I mean, there's a lot of, or at least dark.
They throw it in your face.
They really do. It like, it's a whole moment.
And another theme, I don't know if you caught this, at the very beginning of the episode, young Jack, it starts zoomed in on his eye, just like Jack did at the very first episode.
I didn't catch that.
Yeah, it starts right up on young Jack's little eye, and then it zooms out.
Oh, I like that. But there's a really big moment here. Locke says to Jack, I've looked into the eye of this island, and it is beautiful. We know that he has looked into the eye of this quote unquote monster. So I think the monster is the island. Like, I think the island somehow manifests itself. That's why we don't actually see anything physically, but there's some force of this island. And a couple weeks ago, I said something along the lines of like, this island was a magical place, or maybe wasn't really a part of like this realm or something. And this is furthering my belief here. And this further, so then we get the confirmation that the father is dead, because Jack stumbles upon another, I don't know if it's not the front of the plane. Is this the tail of the plane? Another part of the middle? I don't know.
I think it's like the cargo bay. So it's like, or I don't know if it's like the definitive.
So it's probably like an underbelly portion of the plane.
I think what may have happened is like, maybe like an underbelly may have just like broken off, and then like as it was falling, things were falling out of it. How a coffin survives that, I don't know.
Well, there's a lot of questions here. So the first thing I noticed before even anything else is not the coffin, which we do find out has his father in it, that he was bringing back to LA. Which when he's talking to the flight attendant, he says, in 16 hours, I need to be at this funeral home and blah, 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 blah. So if you subtract a few hours and then you add in some of the time or whatever, and there were 6 hours of the flight and all these other things, I'm like, oh my God, he's saying that he's like needs to be here to have closure. And like that time frame is so close to when the plane would have crashed. Like it's not the same exact thing, but it's pretty damn close. And I'm like, So anyway, so I thought about that.
Well,
so basically, he sees all of these like dolls and such on the ground. And then he sees all these luggages, but the luggage doesn't look like it just fell. It looks like someone has gone through some of the luggage. Like some of it looks like it's been unzipped and opened, because it's just like sitting how it normally would with just the top undone. So my first thought was there might be other people that we haven't seen.
Okay.
And that might include his father, whatever the case might be. But this is where the crux of my theory comes in.
Okay, I can't wait. Ooh, I'm getting
I
chills. just thinking
feel
of it.
like this realm of some sort is like a waiting place, a purgatory, those kind of things. This place where maybe they're all actually, I don't want to say dead, but they're like in this place where like life and death are not as black and white, even though we're seeing black and white. I think that what we're trying to be tricked into is black, white, black, white, black, white, black, white, but there's a lot of gray. I think the island represents a gray. Because the father is dead. He's seeing his father all over the place. He opens up the coffin. No father, no body in there. The coffin was shut, girl. Like there was no way. Like the body shouldn't be in there. It made me think about Claire. Once she started getting sustenance from the island, all of a sudden her baby starts kicking again. So something that was dead, I presumed her baby was dead.
Okay.
Comes back to life. And something that's alive can die, as we've seen with the pilot, as we saw with this woman, that kind of thing. And then I think about Rose, who was talking about her husband and saying like, and she's trying to connect with him and those kind of things. So I just feel like it's like some kind of waiting place where like this island is where it determines whether you die or you live, not like the real world.
No, that's
I'm like so excited to say that.
Well, if we're going on the path of your theory, there is another really important moment that I want to touch on in that conversation between Locke and Jack, where he's talking about fate. And we've seen fate kind of brought up already over the course of this first season, where he's like, we are meant to be here. There is a reason why we were brought here. And that's Locke's mentality going into this, where he's like. And
Locke is another example, something that I won't say that this wouldn't be how I would say this normally, but just to go with the theme, like his legs were quote unquote dead, but now they're alive. Like those are the things that I think that's what's so interesting about this island is I honestly think it plays with the idea of black and white with, death and life. And that's what I love.
Yeah. I can't wait to see more. Also, side note, I do want to talk about a side kind of plot between Sun and Jin. I want to get your thoughts on this because next week's episode is a Sun-centric episode.
I can't wait.
I think you're going to be very excited for.
By the way, this is the first time they confirmed that they are married, which I knew was the case. Like you can infer that, but it's the first time they confirm it. What I thought was interesting is we've really seen, you said Jin, is that his name?
Yep.
So Jin is very, overprotective / abusive, in my opinion, of how he handles Sun as a partner. And like 2 episodes ago, he told her to like, you look like a mess, go bathe, essentially. Like, look, I think he like even marked on her lips then and said like, but like wasn't about her being hydrated. It was more about how she was presenting herself. And this time he makes note and says, your lips, you need to drink more water. And so he does a deal with Sawyer and he gets her more water and she gets more hydrated, that kind of thing. It's a weird connection. I don't know where that's going. But you do see them have a conversation where they're like, we're Sun saying we're really isolating ourselves. I think we need to be trying to communicate with them more. And he's saying like, no, like, I'll tell you what to do. Like, you don't need to worry about figuring that out, essentially. Like, we're going to keep our distance. But we also know that Sun and, what's the little boy's name? Walt are creating a connection too, because of the time that Michael had him for the boar hunt, get watched and that kind of thing. So
I love that. Also, we have to talk about this. If we don't, I'm going to be so mad at myself. The sexual tension between Locke and Jack when he saves him, and they're like laying on your back.
Okay. To me, it's that actual sexual tension.
It's not. Yeah, but I love to think it is.
First of all, this is another affirming moment for Locke.
Yes,
Locke is the everyman that he wanted to be, but he couldn't be. Yep. And this island has made him into a new man. He's probably the only person that's just like, fucking love this island. Like I am exactly who I want to be on this island. And and he's not sharing a lot, but we're seeing that. He saves Jack, which he would not have been able to do beforehand. Not because he didn't have the upper body strength, but probably because he didn't have the strength to brace himself and save Jack beforehand. So now that he has all the strength in his whole body, he saves Jack. They both come up and they're like lying next to each other, like,
and his arm is fully around Jack. It's like
I would have died if he had just been like, was it as good for you? He just pulls out a cigarette that Sawyer gave him.
Well, they just both start laughing about it too, which I think is really funny. So sorry, to get back to where we were. There's no body in the coffin. Yeah. Before we lead into that scene, I think we need to know that it is whether you think it's the vision or actually Jack's dad that leads him to this cave where they find fresh water. Said.
Father led him to water and coffin. But I also think the father led him to the coffin as well. To basically be like, I'm kind of here. A booga booga booga.
I'm here to visit, girl. He's like, hey, daddy-o. He's like.
But also, if you're Jack and you've been like, I hope I find more medicine, and you now have all of these pieces of luggage, why aren't you foraging through the luggage to find supplies? Yeah. Also, the fact that Claire can't find a brush anywhere, there wasn't a single person who had a brush. If that's the cargo, that's where everyone would have a brush and toothpaste and all that fun stuff.
Well, it kind of leads into the ending of this episode because he's kind of rallying the troops, if you will. He's kind of being like, I found fresh water. We can start our lives here now. We can start figuring shit out and stop worrying about getting rescued. And we need to worry about how we're going to live on this island. Because he says the line, and this is whenever people think of Lost, this is the line that people associate. It is, if we can't live together, we're going to die alone. And that's the theme across all 6 seasons, where it's
united we stand, divided we fall.
Yeah. And so basically it's these random people who don't know each other. And that's kind of what we've been seeing from the first few episodes. We're seeing people like Sawyer and Saeed who don't like each other. They hate each other. And over the course of the last few episodes, kind of getting along and kind of burying the hatchet, if you will. And that's a theme that we're seeing is these people need to put their differences aside and really come together. Otherwise they will die alone. And I'm telling you now, Lost is filled to the brim with death. So they need to they need to live together or die alone.
Are we talking Game of Thrones level of death?
No. I'm not saying I'm not saying that sorry.
I'm immediately don't immediately like anybody. They
no. Let me reiterate. I'm not talking about death as in characters, your main characters die. Death as a theme is death is a huge theme in Lost.
Well, if it's a purgatory, like I said, then sure.
Well, no, I mean okay, now I need to stop.
I know.
In this episode, the dad's dead, and that's a huge theme is the death of a father, and I'm just digging a hole. I need to stop talking. But death is a huge theme in Lost because as we're seeing over the course of this, Jack having to deal with the death of people that he felt like he needed to protect. And
I think others also, going back to what Saeed says in the second episode, which is hope is the most valuable thing that we have. If people die, people are losing hope. And so with every death, you're losing the most valuable thing that people have on the island.
Yeah. And I think we're getting our first big character flaw for one of our characters, which is Boone, who feels the need to be a leader and is failing hardcore because we find out that the water was
because
stolen.
His dumbass sister always has made him feel little.
Yeah, it's
Honestly,
true.
she can die and I don't think anybody will care. I don't even think Boone will care. Can I every week just advocate that if there's one character, please let it be whatever her name is.
Let it
Maggie
be Shannon.
Grace. Shannon, that's right.
Shannon, just die.
I just know the actress's name. I don't want Maggie Grace today. Let me be honest. Like, not the actress. I want the character.
Yeah. So Boone once, and we saw this where he was like trying to save the person, and then he projects onto Jack because he failed to save the woman and was like, you should have saved the woman. I was perfectly fine. When he clearly wasn't, he was drowning. And he has this like, he also has a hero mentality, but he's not handling it the same way Jack is, where instead of like actually helping people, Boone feels the need. Oh, Jack's also not handling it very well.
I was just going to say, I don't know if we can say that because he literally leaves Boone to chase after a hallucination of his dead father. So not sure we could say that that's handling it well.
Okay, accurate. But Boone feels the need to steal the water so that he can ration it himself because he felt no one could be trusted with the task, which bites him in the ass. And I'm curious because I can't even remember because like there's so much that happens within Lost. I'm curious what happens going forward from here because I'm trying to remember like Boone's arc in the first season and like what happens with that because he's now made an enemy of like everyone there. He's like the first real like villain or he's been villainized by everyone because he stole the water. And
his idea was not to steal it to be a dick, but to like try to be a leader to dole it out appropriately. But like maybe tell people that like being a good leader is very much about open communication, transparency, empowering people, making people feel like they're a part of the team and all those different kinds of things. So yeah,
absolutely. The cord's still
there. I know it is, but this glare was like, I was like, what is this? And then it's just my clock's reflection.
Oh, it's a face.
It did. I thought it was some kind of weird bird.
Okay. So
I'm gonna have hallucinations like Jack tonight. I've got a cord that I don't know, and all this other stuff.
That'd be so scary. Oh my God.
My dad's in my apartment, except for he's actually alive, and he was physically in my apartment yesterday.
He just stuck around. My last note for this episode is, damn. The music in Lost is good. Like,
yeah, I like it.
I feel like I need to look it up. There has to be music theories on like Lost.
Oh, I'm sure.
Like
I'm sure.
It's so well done. And like in this episode, just like the swelling of moments and like the music that plays when he's like stumbling through the jungle makes you feel disoriented, just like Jack is in that moment. And I'm horny for Maxwell and I'm horny for the music in Lost. Okay. MVP, LVP.
Okay. MVP is going to be Jack. I mean, you can't not give it to Jack. I like that he tries and he's a good person and we learn a little bit more about his background, which was great because I'm pretty sure I made him the LVP for almost the same exact reasons last episode. This is really a great redemption. And I'm thankful. It's like he gets over what his parents have told him his entire life. And it's like he takes ownership of it while simultaneously being like, Dad, are you here? What's going on? But I really like what we get to see from Jack this episode. LVP's got to be Boone. Boone attempts it, but he hides the water. Like he's being secretive. He blows up on Jack. He's blaming Jack for her death. When Jack saved his life, it's like he's having survivor's guilt, but blaming it on anything else. It's just, maybe that's not fair. Listen, I have to give it to either Shannon or Boone every week. So apparently Shannon wasn't really in this episode, so it's going to go to Boone. Either that or it would have gone to Jen, but Jen wasn't that horrible to some.
Yeah.
I'm sure he'll be the LVP next week if next week's a sun-centered.
We'll have to see. I will say I especially love the Sun and Jin or I like the Sun episode like next week. So I'm like very excited.
Next week's episode for Lost is a sun-centered episode.
Mm-hmm.
Next week's episode for the Nanny I'm going to go ahead and say is like a Fran/Niles centered episode.
Oh, I'm going to love it so much.
I think when I think about my favorite episodes, this is in my top 10. The next
Oh,
episode.
I can't wait. Oh, I can't wait. So just like how this episode's a little bit juicier, a little bit longer, and FYI, I think all of them going forward will be, because we're getting more in depth into these plots. I love that, Beth. You're getting to know us a bit more. This might be like an 1.5 hour podcast instead of an hour.
Listen, you don't like what we're doing?
There's the door.
Scrub through so we get the view. And then you can leave. No, just kidding. Hopefully you guys are enjoying this too, but we do have some viewer comments from
there's so many
last week.
So many great ones, because we didn't get into them last week. So we have 2 weeks worth of comments. So Tyler Lyons, who love him to death, co-host of My Weekly Meltdown, says, can't wait for Beth to experience Walkabout. The episode is often ranked in the top 5 episodes of Lost of all time. Props to Michael I'm going to butcher his name, Giacchino, for a Lost amazing score in this episode in particular, which it's so good. James Garrison says, literally obsessed with the podcast. Never really thought Lost was for me, but you guys got me addicted.
And also, I love that.
It's so fun rewatching Nanny after years with you guys. Yes, I love hearing this.
Oh my gosh. Who was the person? There was somebody on Twitter, I believe, who just said over the past couple of days that they told all their coworkers about our show.
Yes.
In order to try to get their coworkers, because I think their coworkers are watching Nanny, or they love Lost or something like that. First of all, thank you so much. Anybody who has done any kind of what we call free support, things like telling your friends or your coworkers, your family, the random person on the street, hopefully all wearing masks, that about our podcast, and anybody who's using our podcast as a means of like watching these amazing shows, like, thank you so much. That's like the highest honor that Dylan and I could have for the appreciation that we have for both of these shows.
All right, I'm trying to find it.
I'm so sorry.
No. But like, it honestly means a lot. It really does, because we do this because we love the joy of like going over some of our favorite shows. And plus, like, a lot of you guys have commented on our chemistry. Like, we're just dumb. We love being stupid. It really is the highlight of my week.
Honestly, it's the same here. Like, I do multiple podcasts, and I love talking about reality show television. I love the chemistry and relationship I have with Tyler, for example, and Allison and Liana and Aman for those 2 different shows that I do. But, you know, Dylan and I established a friendship first, and then I've done this. So it's a little different for me. Plus, it's a scripted show. It's a show that I've seen a billion times, and then a show I've never seen. But I've liked other works that these creators have done. And so this is just a lot of fun, and I'm just so happy you guys are enjoying it.
Yes.
If you ever have any other questions or comments, feel free to address them to us either at Hot Mess Moments. Although, is that our handle?
Yeah, it's at Hot Mess Moments. Yes. On Twitter.
Speaking of hot mess, does Beth know what the thing is?
Okay, wait. We have so many more comments to go through.
Yeah.
So Angela, viewer, friend, amazing confidant from Australia, says, I think Walkabout is an Indigenous Australian reference. Wikipedia describes it as a rite of passage in Australian Aboriginal society during which males undergo a journey during adolescence, typically ages 10 to 16, and live in the wilderness for a period as long as 6 months to make the spiritual and traditional transition into manhood.
Wow.
Interesting.
Very interesting.
Also, another comment from James Garrison saying Jack is 100% a sub bottom, and you can't change my mind.
Yes, 100%.
And
but I think he's turning into a dom bottom by the end.
I think he is. Carrie McKellar says, Dylan, you just now find him hot, in reference to Maxwell. I have found him hot since he was on a soap, My Dad, Yes, My Dad.
Oh, so he was also on Days of Our Lives before.
Oh, was
this.
he?
He played a character called Shane in Days of Our Lives in the late 80s. And he also had so this is Charles Shaughnessy. That's the actor's name. I love Charles Shaughnessy. He's done a lot of theater and such like that afterwards. But he he did a show for CBS as like a guest role for something. And then when they were casting for the Nanny, they were like, we got to get that one British dude from that one guest spot that they did because we liked him. And he came into an episode, and I won't give away the rest of it because I want to save it for a podcast where it's a little bit more appropriate. But like they kept him in mind because he was like this dashing, cute British guy who was on a soap. But they were like, I think he could be serious. He's kind of the serious actor or character in the show. So.
Ooh, that's intriguing. And then Jackie and James also left us comments on episode 4. So Jackie says, I shared info about your podcast. This is what you're saying. During a work Zoom icebreaker, asking what we are watching these days. Several folks seem interested, hoping to send more viewers your way. You're so sweet.
That's Jackie, what I was thinking of. Thank you so much, Jackie. Appreciate that.
And James says, my initial thoughts on Jack's whole attitude this episode, which was episode 4, was that in killing the Marshal, aka Mars, he betrayed his entire moral code and belief system and is pretty much spiraling and having a very much nothing matters anymore attitude. It's like
totally agree.
Going through some cognitive dissonance.
I totally agree. And I think that this episode kind of confirms that, furthering like what he heard with his parents and like in his mind. So yeah, I definitely agree with that.
Yeah, it's insane. But that's all for viewer comments. If you guys have any other comments or would love to leave us a rating, make sure to go to Apple Podcasts, give us a 5-star. If you can, please, and leave a written review. It helps us out a ton, especially with how the algorithms work over at Apple Podcasts.
It's so true. And same with YouTube. Leave us a like, drop us a follow, subscribe, I mean. And if you have specific comments that are for the Nanny that are, especially if there's spoiler film, feel free to tweet them at me or even DM me. Same with Lost with Dylan. The best thing about this podcast is that it is spoiler free for both of us. I don't know what happens in Lost. I don't want to know what's going to happen in Lost until I watch it. And I know Dylan's the same thing with the Nanny.
Oh yeah. And also I just want to celebrate. We finally hit 50 subscribers on YouTube,
Yay!
which is super awesome. We can't thank you guys enough. And we are so close to 100 followers on Twitter. We're at 83 followers. It means so much to us because it's our little baby podcast. Oh my goodness. Well, I hope you guys enjoy.
Wait to be a nanny to our little baby.
Oh, it's true. It's so true.
But I just hope it doesn't get lost.
We can talk about this in a future podcast episode. We forgot to go over the titles of these episodes and how it like fits in. But like White Rabbit fits into Lost. Here Comes the Brood. Totally makes sense for this episode. We can talk about that in a future episode, though. I hope you guys enjoyed episode 5. I hope you had a good time. I hope that when you go to bed at night, instead of thinking of Jack's dad in a tuxedo with white tennis shoes or that cord behind Beth, instead you have beautiful dreams of Beth and I sitting at our computers talking to you in your sleep about Lost.
With these faces.
You can't see it if you're not on video.
Oh yeah.
Just know that we are fucking beautiful.
So hot.
Gorgeous, darling. Gorgeous. Okay, we'll talk to you guys next week. And until then, bye.
Bye.